Hello, everybody. I am Erica Lukes, and this is UFO Classified. And yes, it has been a hot minute since I have hung out with all of you. But for those of you who've been following me, you know that I am working with Expanding Frontiers Research. You can go to expandingfrontiersresearch.org to check out the work that I've been doing with my colleague and partner, Jack Brewer, for the past 3 years. We just celebrated our 3-year anniversary, and I'm so proud to be involved in this organization. We have not stopped interviewing, doing records requests, archiving. Yes, cheers, my friend. But we have been keeping on, and I'm really incredibly proud. I want to just go back and mention the award that we received from the Utah Investigative Journalist, which is a huge feather in our cap. That was for work on Phenomicon. You can go to our website and check it out. And I also just want to tell people that even though with Expanding Frontiers, we kind of go off a little bit and we research and talk to people who are involved in cults, which, if you get my drift, is kind of the same thing as the UFO community. So hence the reason I like to interview. We like to interview experts. But a lot of the things that we talk about in EFR completely overlap with the UFO community, including interviews that we've done with environmentalists on Area 52 or Dugway Proving Ground. So you've got to check it out. You've got to go there. You've got to like it, subscribe. And then if you are my old UFO Classified followers, please make sure you like, subscribe, and share this show, because I am going to be doing more on this channel. And I really appreciate all of you. It is so freaking cool to be here live and get in the chat and see Amy. Amy, give Dinah a big kiss for me. To see Rachel, to see Ken. Ken, it's been a long time, and good evening from Salt Lake. I know you're in Michigan. You know, I have done this for I mean, gosh, has it been over a decade? Yes. Lord, help me. There's a reason that I need a good therapist right now, Jack. What do you think? But Jack, my friend and research partner, has done this for a lot longer in the public sense. But I do this, and I really get excited about it because of the community that we've built, not only with Jack and all of the work he's done on his blog and the 2 books that he wrote, and we're going to talk a little bit about both of those tonight, but also this wonderful community with Expanding Frontiers. And it really means a lot to me. So, and yeah, Ken, it's, I think 7 years maybe for UFO Classified, but then I had a show before that, and then so on and so on. But I love it. And I love, even though we've been through some highs and lows together, as you guys have seen, if you followed me, I love knowing that we've got that connection. And even though I haven't met any of you in person, well, most of you in person, the connection that we have and the sense of community that we've created is something that I'm really, really proud of. That means a lot to me. And in the world, the wacky world of UFOs, it is critical to make sure that we have each other to ground each other, to make sure that we're getting good information, and to make sure that we're not getting led down rabbit holes that are really dangerous to our psyches, that can really create a lot of damage, which is what we're seeing in the world right now with some of the brainwashing that has gone on. So anyway, thanks and hello, everybody. Guys, it's nice to see you all. Yay. Okay, I'm having fun. It's been 3 minutes into the show, and I'm having a good time. So now I will quit talking and introduce Jack Brewer. Hello, my friend.
Hello, Ms. Lukes. Thank you for having me on. It's great to be back on UFO Classified again. Thanks for everybody for hanging out in the chat. Thanks to all of you who take a look at this later. I appreciate your interest. Thank you.
And I just, look, and here's, we've got Jim. I love it, you guys. Thank you so much. And okay, so Jack, and I want to actually just say to you guys, since we're in here and we are, we've got the chat going on, and there is Weird Reads with Emily Louise. Yeah, baby, I feel like singing tonight. Mama is going to bust out in some sort of musical, and it could be a little frightening for y'all, so just prepare yourself. Grab a cocktail, do something, but, sometimes a girl's got to sing. So anyway, we have been very busy, and I want to say, Jack, okay, what do you want to start with? And then I also want to go back, because I'm so excited. So I'm going a million miles an hour. At the end of the show, I want to have questions from all of you guys that are listening to the show. And I want you to feel free to ask me whatever you want to ask me. I know it's been a while since I've seen some of you. I'm here to answer questions, and we'll do that last half an hour of the show. So prepare yourself, Jack. But Jack, you start it off. Where do you want to go tonight, Mr. Brewer?
Sure. We can go whatever directions you want, whatever directions folks in chat want. We had a couple things that we thought we would probably discuss along the way. I thought one thing I'd like to kind of talk a little about is kind of how we make the donuts, so to speak, at Expanding Frontiers. And one of the things that I was interested in collaborating with Erica about was we've known each other several years now, and our paths first began to cross because I had identified Erica as being one of the most knowledgeable people, at least that I was aware of, on the paranormal claims and the myths about UFOs and things, particularly in Utah. And so I started interacting with her about some of that. She also knew a lot about NICAP and was close with some of the people that knew a lot and had been involved in NICAP. And so eventually we began to work more and more together and incorporated Expanding Frontiers research, invited Barry Greenwood, who helpfully rounded out the board for us. And Erica comes up with a lot of the ideas about what I submit records requests on. Then as we follow that process through, we share it in our Patreon. We let them know we let them take a look at the records as we receive them. And then it makes it to the blog when we start getting some assessments of what we're looking at and into videos on the EFR YouTube channel as we collect more information and begin to digest and process what we're looking at. And so I just kind of wanted people to understand how those steps go, and that there with our Patreon folks and the folks that contribute and interact with us, we help them with their FOIA work. We help them craft their requests, in some circumstances, even submit them for them and keep them advised of the process, and then negotiate their requests on their behalf and things like that. So Erica and I met through the UFO community, yet EFR does work on a variety of things, the research process, topics of interest to the public, and a number of areas that we can get public records and sink our teeth into stories, but we always have something or other grounded in the UFO community as well, it seems like.
We always do, and it's funny because I know for me, it's like this is a subject, the UFO topic is something that I will never not be interested in. And, you and I have had many conversations. I've had many conversations on UFO Classified and EFR talking about how bright-eyed and bushy-tailed I was to begin with. And then the more I learned about things, the more I learned about organizations, the more I learned about motivations, psychological warfare, the more I learned about belief systems, the more I began to understand that the UFO topic is, there are a lot of things that we don't give enough credit to, which is a reason that I like you, Jack, because you understand the intelligence community aspect, you understand some of the deeper layers, and I would dare say that 99% of the people that I know that engage in this topic have no interest in even talking about this, and to me, it's the most important aspect. And, on that note, we do have an archive with EFR, and we are looking, always for donations. to help with the archiving process. It's one of it's just an amazing collection, over 100,000 original pages here that need to be preserved. But I also want to, when we go into, I want to talk a little bit and start the show off with this, Jack, if you don't mind. I want to talk about the legacy of some of the people in the UFO community. I want to talk about the way the history is being siphoned off into just being funneled off into a black hole, in my opinion, and how we're at a really critical time when a lot of important information can potentially be lost because it won't be seeing the light of day. In my opinion, there are a lot of people involved in, or a few people involved in the UFO topic and historical preservation who have a vested interest in making sure that the topic of UFOs is front and center. And they are not critically thinking about the topic, and they do not want information to get out to the public about the motivations and political leanings of specific researchers. And to me, the old guard has failed in that regard. Barry Greenwood has been exceptional. He and I have, obviously, he's on our board of directors. We have worked together hand in hand over the years, and I appreciate him very much. But as far as some of the other researchers or historical archivists go, that's a real problem. And right now, especially when we see kind of this collapse of society, basically, and you've got these false narratives that are being promoted more now than ever, it is really important to me to make sure that the history of this subject is preserved. And I'm not talking about, yes, aliens are here, and yes, you're getting abducted by a Nordic, blonde-haired, blue-eyed being. Give me a freaking break to any of you people that believe that crap. I'm sorry. Mama's going to get spicy tonight, right out of the gate here. But so, I just want to say I think that's a real disservice, and people aren't calling this out. Jack, you and I are the only two people that are calling this out. So what gives? What do you think about it?
I feel like a lot of people think they're objective and they think that they're being unbiased when they've just gotten in the habit of thinking that, like they're not really trying to practice objectivity on a regular basis. They're not mindful about it. They're not intentional about it. I think it only, I think of our friend James Carrion, that it only takes a couple of people to orchestrate a wide scale movement. Like dozens of people don't have to be in on it to be influenced by it and think they are high in integrity and doing the right thing to still be carrying out what might be less than best practices, to put it simply. I understand what you're talking about. In fact, we did a blog post not long ago at Expanding Frontiers that grew out of the correspondence that I had been in with Dr. Brian Akers, and it was about some questions he had about the methodology of J. Allen Hynek. And so that naturally led to looking in Mark O'Connell's work and corresponding with Mark, because I wanted to show him where I was at and what I was doing. And if there's something he would challenge and show me where I'm wrong, I'd like to know before I post the work,
Right.
And
let me just
to
really
cut
quickly,
to the sure.
sorry.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Jack. I was just going to say, can you just tell our audience, for people that are maybe newer to the subject who don't know who J. Allen Hynek is, can you just give us a brief snippet of who J. Allen Hynek is? And for the rest of you who are here who know, I apologize, but you got to do it.
Sure. And jump in anytime, Erica. Anytime, just jump in. Dr. Hynek was an influential mid 20th century astronomer and scientist. He worked with Project Blue Book, which was an Air Force investigation of UFO sightings. He was influential with the Condon Committee, that was a panel at the University of Colorado that were funded by the Air Force to investigate UFOs. And he was somewhat, historians typically feel, between a rock and a hard place, that he had some interest in the topic and thought there were some strange things going on. Yet he also didn't want to be sensationalist and have many of the qualities that we see and look back on and see that people's belief was outweighing. They were getting ahead of their skis with their belief as compared to what they could scientifically prove, while claiming to be conducting work under the guise of science. And so Dr. Hynek was between a rock and a hard place, in that his friends, like Dr. Jacques Vallée, wanted him to be more aggressive with promoting UFOs, while the Air Force wanted quick and rational explanations about the cases it gave him. And if I'm understanding Mark O'Connell's work correctly, which I think I am, oftentimes Dr. Hynek was not in a position to validate either extreme. And I think that's one of the things that interested Mark in Dr. Hynek, was a guy that said, a lot of y'all are wrong, and I'd like to try to figure out what's going on here. Yet our recent blog post at EFR, which includes comments from Erica as well as Dr. Akers and Mark O'Connell, it points out that a lot of what was happening at that time had more to do with public relations than it did science, even with Dr. Hynek's best efforts. And I think this ties into the topic Erica brings up. There are archives that have a lot of information about correspondence conducted by Hynek and his work and articles during that era, that some people, like Erica, are concerned that they're pretty selective about how they present that, which is kind of counterintuitive to the whole archiving and research process, really.
And you know what? And it's sad to me, and thank you, Jack. I mean, we've seen this for 70 plus years in the UFO community. We've seen that a handful of people have information to the mother lode, and that data is easily bought and sold to the highest bidder for Lord knows what purpose. And then you have people that are, organizations like MUFON, who are supposed to be, doing scientific research, which we all know that's a big joke, but I mean, and then you've got people that are creating these myths and narratives, and a lot of them are steeped in some pretty subversive stuff, as you and I have found out, which we'll get into later. But it is, it's a critical point. It's a critical point in preservation for this. I mean, I know here, as we, look at my archive, look at the EFR archive, I mean, there's so many things here, including, UFO reports, including UFO organizations that were out every night looking for UFOs, so these correspondence. The communications are so critical, to make sure you're preserving and to put forward. It isn't just about, and this is one thing, again, that really bothers me with the UFO, the older crowd. It's like they're looking through all of these archives, and their main goal is to find the one case that will prove aliens are real and they're here, and they are missing the boat on the majority of what is really important about this topic. And that's I guess you get to a point where you just want to look for that holy grail, but it does a disservice to the topic, and it does a disservice to those of us who really would like to see something meaningful done with research into something that should be a really fun, enlightening area to study. But with the people that are holding the cards are not interested in that, and that's too bad.
Yeah, as you're talking, I'm reminded of some of the different cases that we've looked at over the last 3 years and some of the material from your archive. And we came across, or Erica did and shared it with me, and I did a blog post on it, on a letter authored by Betty Hill, where she explains that she was paid by the Air Force to give lectures on the topic, and that it was her opinion. She was telling the recipient of the letter, which, if I recall right, was Ann Druffel, that she was saying, if there's a cover up, it's that it's that UFO researchers are hiding what they're learning about this when it doesn't align with what they want people to believe. And I find it interesting that while that's just an opinion like anyone else's, there are things that Betty Hill has said, that Barney Hill has said, that Dr. Simon said, that are quoted ad nauseum, but we don't hear much about Betty getting paid by the Air Force, that Donald Kehoe was busy conducting a campaign to accuse of a cover-up. So how does that work exactly? And, moving right along, I would say similar about the first director of the CIA, Roscoe Hillenkoetter, that when I even say that name, people that are familiar with it, what probably comes to mind is an advocate about flying saucers from other planets, a NICAP chairman of the board for a while. Those are the things people probably think of because that's what we see the most in memes on social media and videos on YouTube, things like that. Yet a closer review of his actual personal correspondence with people like members of the Harvard astronomy department and people that were active in the UFO community show us that was not a primary point of view held by Admiral Hillenkoetter. And more importantly, it was a very small part of his career as a naval intelligence officer. And that's the part, like Erica is saying, about skewing the history that really gets me. Is I understand people are interested in UFOs. And so if they talk about the CIA, that's like part of what they're going to latch on to. But saying Hillenkoetter was into UFOs is kind of taking things out of context to an extreme of like Abraham Lincoln is known for his beard trimming skills. Or I mean, it's just a ridiculous lack of context of the other things the man did during his career.
Right. And so explain, and again, I'm really sorry to do this, Jack, but I really want to pull in new people that don't have a lot of knowledge about this. And so explain, Hillenkoetter's, explain his importance in the early days of the UFO community and why that is such a red flag.
He was this is, like, how far do we want to go with it? you stop me 45 minutes from now and I'll come up for air, But just to try to summarize, he was the first director of the CIA during the very influential late 1940s, influential to the nation and national security, influential to the birth of the modern UFO phenomenon, lore, and beliefs. He was invited and accepted an invitation from Donald Kehoe to serve as the chairman of the board of NICAP in the late 1950s and in its early days. A lot was going on between those late 1940s and late 1950s involving the CIA in the UFO community and specifically with NICAP. And as we've demonstrated at Expanding Frontiers Research, and Erica graciously mentioned one of my books earlier that's titled Wayward Sons, NICAP and the IC, goes into detail about how Admiral Hillenkoetter was conclusively aware of the behind-the-scenes connections between the intelligence community and a public relations group known as Counsel Services that helped the first director of NICAP, Townsend Brown, incorporate the organization. And these are things that, as Erica is illustrating and getting at, are not, if they're obstructed, we're not getting a full view. And I'll circle back to Betty Hill's comment about if there's any cover up. I'm paraphrasing, but she wrote something to the effect to Ann Druffel of, if there's any cover up, it's UFO investigators not telling people what they want to know. And by the way, in that letter, she was specifically referring to an investigator she had interacted with who she had told things about her report of the incident with her husband, Barney. And she said that the investigators said, no, I'm going to change this and that, and it'll work just fine that way. And that was what she was telling Ann Druffel about, was he wasn't interested in what happened at all, but he had himself a good story for his book or whatever it was he was doing.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. And I mean, that to me, when I found the Betty Hill correspondence, I mean, that just blew me away. And, that's why it is so important to make sure that you're not just digging through everything to look for that one case. It's like this paints such a fascinating picture. And, as much as I would love to prove UFOs have visited Earth, I still am fascinated by all of these interactions and the intelligence community and the use by certain people to manipulate belief systems. And I want to just mention back here a little teeny bit ago, I know that somebody had mentioned, and I won't go all the way back, but actually about Hynek, who was into Rosicrucianism. And I want to just touch on that really quickly to go back to that. And I'm sorry, Jack, to throw you off track here, but that is a really interesting thought, because as we know, there's a person in the UFO world named Christopher Bledsoe, who has been surrounded by the likes of Dr. John Alexander, who was into psychological warfare, who was also colleagues with Robert Bigelow. And Chris Bledsoe, in one of the first conversations that I had with him, was very much about promoting Rosicrucian, the Rosicrucianism. And so it is interesting to see that, these things are just cycling, back and forth. That's mind-boggling to me.
It is. I smile when you bring up Colonel Alexander. There was a point in my writing career that I was significantly disturbed by some of his behavior in General Stubblebine, and it could still be defined that way. And there's a part of me now in hindsight that almost smiles at the absurdity of it all, that there's a certain unreliability that runs through so many of these former CIA officers that purport to be able to give us the inside stories and things like that. And then to hear them discuss things, it sounds like they've never even met. They'll contradict each other so much. And so I was kind of smiling too, because John Ronson's, the film he inspired, Men Who Stare at Goats, came to mind. And you'd probably learn more about what actually was going on in the CIA by watching the parody comical film Men Who Stare at Goats than you would from trying to follow John Alexander's claims and things that he was putting forward.
Yeah, absolutely. It's very fascinating. And I love, again, I just want to say it's really fun to see you guys in chat and to see your comments. You guys haven't missed a beat. It's really fun. Okay, Jack. So let's talk a little bit about Area 51. Because
let's
that's a subject
do.
that you just never get tired of.
Nellis Air Force Base. Right. Nellis Air Force Base, the Nevada Test and Training Range, Area 51. It's been showing up on the UFO weather map for a long time. One of the things that come to mind with it is Simone Mendez, who had a chapter dedicated to her story in The Grays Have Been Framed that I wrote. That's where she was stationed when she got involved in fraudulent documents being passed around that were really reminiscent of the Bill Moore and Richard Doty and Paul Benowitz affair. So again, we have to proceed with caution, and I think that's what, not to put words in your mouth, but I think that's what disturbs Erica about archivists that seem to have a preconceived destination that the documents should be leading them to, is you have to really tread lightly with making sure that what intelligence agencies are feeding individuals or the public or their cool stories can be verified. And it's not a magical formula to apply to the CIA or the FBI or anyone else. It's just solid research practices to make sure that you identify the difference between a person's statement and what can be verified. And Area 51 really just epitomizes that, and that the powers that be seem to have some responsibility in helping perpetuate the myth that it was a place that aliens were stored, that there were fights going on, that there between humans and aliens, that they had craft, that they were designing craft there, that they were reverse engineering alien craft. Like pretty much if you name it, there's some character like Bob Lazar or Richard Doty that have some hand in something they claimed was going on at Area 51. And that's one of those things like the Hillencoder quotes that if you see this enough times, you start to kind of thinking it yourself and associating it with it. If you see enough documentaries that are just, poorly made and YouTube videos and all of that kind of thing. But basically, Area 51 is a catch-all, and shout out to Tanner Boyle for his recent article on Scooby-Doo and that dynamic, that Area 51 is kind of a Scooby-Doo mystery of spooky stuff going on here. Don't anybody come around, that kind of got out of hand. What would you say about that, Erica?
No, I would agree. I mean, it is really interesting, the fact that the intelligence community for so many decades would let these stories, I just kind of foster. And especially when it comes to a place like Area 51 or Area 52, Dugway Proving Ground, there were and there are people that are actively involved in, trying to figure out what our government is doing. And you've got people that are naive enough to go sit on the border of a testing ground and snap photos. And what do we think is going to happen? And I don't know why they would choose to run with that instead of just cutting it off to begin with. It's almost like they made the problem much worse by doing so.
Yeah, and that's an interesting point there too about perception. I remember many years ago, the first time I recall anyway, hearing about Dugway Proving Ground, which is a secure facility in Utah. Someone sent me a video to watch, and I was in a group email list, and they wanted to chat about check this out, and they purported to be a source that was qualified to inform us about the programs similar to Area 51 that were going on at Dugway, and they positioned themselves to enlighten the other people in the E-list about this. And having not been indoctrinated in it at the point I saw the video, which seemed to have something in the air and seemed to be dropping light. It kind of looked like fire dripping or something. That you know how it goes. Black, blurry, some lights moving around. It was remarkably simple to me that this is an Air Force base. Like what's to figure out about this,
right?
And when you're not steeped in the lore and haven't been, like I say, indoctrinated, it was rather abrupt that, like, wow, this guy like thinks he's onto something here with this stuff. That's something going on over a military base,
It's so awkward in so many ways. Yeah.
And so what we end up with at Area 51, and recently, Erica, recently being in the past few weeks and months, that's kind of how the donut cycle that I referred to earlier runs. She said, what do you think about Area 51? There's some things that have happened there. She brought up the Storm Area 51 event that was supposed to happen in 2019. And then in 2022, some guy that ran a website got his homes raided. And like, what do you think's going on with that? And I'm like, well, let's see. And we submitted some requests to my usual FBI, and some of that didn't go anywhere, and some of it is still pending. And we learned, like people in our Patreon see how this evolves. When we submitted a request to the FBI once upon a time on Ramp the School of Enlightenment, we only got a couple of pages, but on those pages was a reference to that the FBI checked in with the Thurston County Sheriff's Office in Washington about Ramp the School, and the sheriff made the special agent aware that they were well aware of the group. And so that led to us submitting public records requests under the Washington Public Records Act to Thurston County Sheriff's Office. And that turned into some year and a half or so of releases that turned into a whole database that Expanding Frontiers Research has published on records obtained about responsive to Ramp the School of Enlightenment from their local sheriff's office. So since we had learned this, we went ahead and said, well, let's see if FBI ever gave the local sheriff's office at Area 51 a heads up about anything.
Right. And let me just stop you right there really quickly and say, Ramtha, why do we care about Ramtha? Well, first of all, she was a huge, huge donor to the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, the world's quote unquote largest UFO organization. So I want to just kind of thread that back in there. Sorry, Jack, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I mean, we can wind here. Yes, J.Z. Knight was very influential in the UFO community. And as I mentioned earlier, Expanding Frontiers Research pursues topics of public interest. So if there's a cult that's well known to local law enforcement, that seems like a reasonable topic to find out what the records hold and then follow it through to its completion. And as Erica says, J.Z. Knight was a primary donor of the Mutual UFO Network, and along with the rather at this point infamous, what's the guy's name in Pennsylvania?
Oh, John Ventry.
Yes, thank you. John Ventry.
I hate to utter those two words, but
yes, Ventry and J.Z. Knight were reportedly on that inner circle because of the donations they were giving to MUFON. So there is, research to be done here about what was going on. Yeah. And so circling back now to, we had learned through that request that sometimes it pays off to like, don't sleep on the regional offices and agencies, along with requests to federal agencies and branches of the military and things like that. Don't forget about local law enforcement and other local agencies. And from that, about Area 51, we recently did a blog post where we shared the records we obtained that indicate that the man, his name is, and I apologize in advance for a mispronunciation, Jorg Arnu, yeah, or something to that effect, that had his homes raided, had been confronted by the sheriff's office less than 6 months prior to when those warrants were served. at one of the gates of Area 51, the Nevada Test and Training Range, with 3 other men who all had German passports, and they were in possession of a drone, and they admitted to doing filming in the area but denied that they had flown the drone. The sheriff's office was there because it was responding to a call placed by the Nevada Test and Training Range about the trespassers. So they left without incident eventually because the base personnel did not want to give any written statements, didn't want to turn over any film footage or anything that could substantiate their concerns about drones or trespassing. But it's not hard to envision how an incident like that, much less if there were more of them, could have led to the raid. And to kind of put this more of this in context here, I'm not arguing Mr. Arnou's intentions or loyalty or what he's doing. I'm saying a point can still be made here without needing to know people's motives and what they're thinking. A point can be made that if you have that conditioning, like the man that sent me the Dugway Proving Ground video that thinks he's sharing aliens with me, you really can get out of hand here that on Mr. Arnou's website, Dreamland Resort, there is a lot of material posted about how he feels his rights have been violated and that this is overreach to raid his homes, take electronic equipment. He may be right. I mean, if he wants to argue that in court with the FBI and the Air Force, that's his prerogative. Yet, I'm just saying that I'm seeing a lack of awareness that this is a government research facility that is conducting classified research and development, that he seems to think his rights have been violated when on his website, he's saying that the website is the leading expert in the base and its black projects. That just to me kind of seems like a recipe to at some point have someone show up with badges and inquire what you're doing.
Well, and you know what's so funny? I know that you haven't seen the documentary that just came out on Netflix, Trainwreck Storm Area 51. He's featured, prominently in that documentary. And, he was very much of the mindset that how dare anybody come here and organize this big event and, come onto our property and all of this stuff. Yet he is the person that is helping promote that narrative. I don't know what people think. It's like Skinwalker Ranch. Don't come here, but we're going to promote it and make money off of it. It's.
Yeah, there was a second responsive police report from the request that we submitted to the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office on his website. Dreamland Resort was the subject of the records request. The first one that I just described was a few months prior to the raid, where the second one was in January of 2023, so a couple of months after the November 2022 raid. And like you're saying, Erica, the officer that responded to an incident of Mr. Arnou complaining that people were circling his property, the officer documented that Mr. Arnou stated he didn't like the idea of people riding around his property and filming, which seems kind of ironic, you know. And the deputy pointed out that it's not illegal for people to ride around with their phones and film or something. And the deputy established that, to his satisfaction, that the people that Arnu eventually confronted probably weren't even in the area for that reason. And Arnu, you know, just explained to him he seemed to be a little paranoid since the raid, which, you know, I'm not going to argue that one way or the other. Like I say, I'm not here to pass judgment on anyone's thinking or what they may have in their head. But yeah, it was documented by the responding deputy in the incident report after the raid, when Arnu called and asked for assistance with getting people to leave, that he didn't like being filmed. And okay, well, how would you feel if you were a secure government facility about that?
You know, and I want to just and I mean, he was with the filming. I mean, he was with 2 German nationals, right?
3.
3.
Yeah.
Okay. And I want to go back to, because there's a comment in here. Jeff made a comment, Jeff Knox. Let's be honest, the public land you'd be flying over is 24 miles away from the base. Doesn't matter how far up you fly the drone. I don't think that's the point. You know, I mean, to me, that's not the point. It's the fact that you're, you know, you are flying a drone. It doesn't matter if you're filming something sensitive.
I mean, again, I'm not going to argue what Jeff's intentions or Mr. Arnu's might be. I think the point is, it's clearly posted, no photographs and no drones. It's clearly posted. So the issue would be, get the law changed if you want to fly your drone, wouldn't it?
I would think. And I mean, I don't know. Interesting comments. But yeah, I mean, again, yeah, I think the Jorg Arnu thing, I mean, those were interesting records to get. And again, you've got people who have actively promoted the mythology of some of these places, and it's really fascinating to me. Do you know by chance, off the top of your head, what gate they were at?
It was the Rachel Gate was listed in the police report. I'd also add that Mr. Arnu was offered multiple opportunities to provide statements and he did not respond. I continue to, you know, open that invitation to him if he would like to further explain something or clarify something. A concern I had as well about the way the website could be perceived as portraying Area 51 as it's certainly portraying Area 51 as something that researchers should focus on, and like there should be a research conducted about the facility. And to his credit, he posted some documents that we link in the EFR blog post about his efforts to learn more from the FBI and to learn more from OSI, Office of Special Investigations with the Air Force. Yet there are some, what I identify as somewhat peculiar redactions on the search warrants, in that, and this is getting back to the research process, that When we obtain public records, we explain how they were obtained and where we got them, and we provide those records. If we take it upon ourselves to redact any of it ourselves, we explain why we did that, which is very rare that we do. The only times EFR ever does it is if it's personal information about a victim, cell phone information, things like that, that some states have really loose laws about. If you interact with police departments, pretty much everything that happens is public record. Some are more rigid, some are less rigid. And EFR has thought in the past that it would be responsible to redact some personal information in select circumstances. Very rare, very rare. Mr. Arnou's warrants have different kinds of redactions, like some are black boxes, some are white over the screen. Like I say, they're just peculiar. Maybe I just don't understand what it is, or why. I clearly don't, or why it was done. But I can appreciate he wants to offer some verification that the raids actually happened and who the agencies were that conducted the raids. But then in launching a GoFundMe to get reimbursement for equipment taken, I question a bit that the equipment that was seized into evidence is redacted. Like, I don't really understand why that would be redacted. I don't really understand all about why it's posted. Like, clearly the whole document is not posted. It seems to be 40 something pages, and that's obviously not posted. So perhaps Mr. Arnou is just not real familiar with what we would consider the standard research process for posting something like that. As I say, he was offered opportunities to interact with me and answer my questions, which he doesn't seem to prioritize. But those are just some of my concerns.
Interesting. Well, I mean, it would be, yeah, the whole thing is very fascinating to me, and good to know that there are some people in chat that have spent lots of time out on the border of Area 51. I've got to just ask, like, what, Jeff, you mentioned here in chat that he spends a lot of time out near Area 51, and I want to ask you, what is your goal, Jeff, to be on the border of a military installation? I'm very curious, because I will tell you, I've been there. I drove up to the gate. That was, whatever. It was an experience. But, for me, living near Dugway Proving Ground and knowing some of, especially here in Dugway, to know how toxic the area is around Dugway, I certainly wouldn't want to be hanging out in that area or pushing the buttons of any, anybody in the military or anybody trying to guard the base. So just legend tripping. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, like again, it feels like we're getting out of practical sense and too much into the alien mythos. I'll rhetorically ask, if the no photography and no drones is not directed at a man giving tour to people with foreign passports, who would it be directed at?
Right. Yeah. I mean,
at what point is it just silly? It's just silly.
I don't know. I mean, it's fascinating. And there's a fellow here in Utah that I've mentioned. I had him on the show a million years ago. I don't even know if he's still around. But I think, his name is Alien Dave Rosenfeld, but he went out on the border of Dugway. I mean, many, many times, and filmed things and was paid visits, and his hard drives were confiscated and things, as I would imagine you would hope, in a way you would hope, if this is a top secret testing facility, you would hope that there would be some ramifications for things, but I don't know. And yeah. So anyway, and I want to just throw in there, we're going to have to talk about this some other time, Jack, but with regard to not filming or using drones or things, Utah Skinwalker Ranch, the Skinwalker Ranch crew pulled some pretty interesting stuff with getting legislation passed about not photographing or taking drone or LiDAR on the ranch and things like that. So
Yeah, that is a whole nother interesting line of research. Skinwalker Ranch's concerns about being filmed and having surveys made of its land. I'm people that follow me on social media, people that read my work are aware I'm about as liberal as they come with social issues and with human rights. Yet I can empathize that for an intelligence agency to conduct its work and its mission, it needs some degree of secrecy in certain aspects. And I can empathize that if a decision gets made now and then that a message needs to be sent, that don't forget, with all of the all of the craps and giggles, that this is a secure Air Force facility and back up. I can understand if they decide to send that message occasionally.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and I just saw a couple of ideas that you guys can run with that one. I'm not getting involved with that one.
Well, I would like to. This kind of brings us to we also submitted a request to the Lincoln County Sheriff's Office on Storm Area 51, and the records officer was helpful in letting me know what they needed to be able to try to find responsive records, as they didn't have anything. Like, they just don't file them that way. There's not metadata with their records to conduct a search on basically UFO lore. And after some back and forth in correspondence, they did locate a incident report of the date of the Storm Area 51 event. And I felt like that this gives good context too for why it matters what Mr. Arnu and his associates are doing. That if we back up to 2019, when the man on Facebook made the post about, we should storm Area 51. And when it gained some traction and got some attention, then Jeremy Corbell wanted to jump on board and he promoted it and wanted in on it. And the resources that get spent on this foolishness from a law enforcement perspective, I do have empathy for. That the record we got from the sheriff's office showed how they responded to a call from the base again, that base security had detained two people inside the gate. They were their Jeep with Utah plates was literally parked inside a no trespassing sign. And the report also indicated that just because of this event, there was a mobile detention center staged at a fire station in the area. So they had to do that. And then they took the two people that were charged with trespassing to the mobile detention center the temporary detention center, and then they interact with them and they apologize and they give them permission to check their phones, and the deputy finds a picture and a video that was apparently from inside the boundary, and that the video is deleted, and then the two post bail, and they're given transportation now to where their car has been towed, which, you know, that had to be done as well. And, you know, law enforcement didn't know, is this going to be a couple people? Is it going to be a couple hundred? Right. You know, what are we looking at here? And so that kind of puts it in context too of no big deal unless you're the guy that's all the time having to ride out in the desert and ask the guys what they're doing. You know, it gets to be a little bigger deal then too.
Yeah, very, very interesting. I mean, you'll have to watch the little docuseries. I mean, they did a pretty good job with everything, and it was interesting to see the way things rolled out. I mean, I remember living, you know, obviously I lived through that, and I was, you know, watching the chatter and then watching people like Corbell get involved in all of this stuff just to get involved, because he's got to stick his head in everything, you know. Even though he's not a part of anything, it's just get in there and do your thing. But it's I don't know. I feel, in a way, I feel really bad for that fellow that started the storm Area 51, but I hope he learned that lesson. I'm sure he did. It sounds like he learned a pretty big lesson pretty quickly. And you know, just to think of the chaos that event could have created and the real threat to national security. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's all relative. Like, if we just look at the Arnu event in only the way it's framed on his website, it's framed as if he's not doing anything other websites aren't doing, and without provocation, law enforcement showed up and raided 2 of his homes. In my opinion, the sheriff's office records provide a little more context into that narrative. And then the keeping it in context with the Storm Area 51 event provides even more context of here's what we're dealing with when we're trying to work at this base and we're law enforcement members in this county. Now, last but not least, as we started this, I'll remind everyone we prefaced this with saying Uncle Sam does bear some responsibility in the mythos too. I mean, they've put some icing on the cake from time to time and used it as advantageous. Yet the point remains, like you started the show with, Erica, you have to keep it all in context for it to be in context. I mean, how else can I put that? You know, you have to look at the whole picture or you're only getting a snapshot.
Right. Absolutely. And thanks, Tanner, for the comment there. I'll definitely be checking that out. And of course, Corbell is integral to all the messiness in everything. Shocking. Is there a picture of his ass going up a mountain? Because that seems to be what Jeremy Corbell is all about, you know.
And by the way, thanks for hanging out, Tanner and Emily. We appreciate y'all and your interest.
Yeah, and I just want to say, Getting Spooked with Tanner Boyle, I mean, excellent blog. And Emily, I adore what you're doing. And in fact, we're going to have a whole panel on the show in the next, you know, maybe month or so, maybe a Halloween panel. I don't know. I'm just saying, because Mama's getting excited for, you know, that. But I would love to get all of you on here and just have some conversations about a lot of things that are going on, a lot of research that you guys have done, both Emily and Tanner, and talking a little bit about some of the nuances that we find. We had a great conversation the other night for our Patreon members. Rachel was there, and it was really a lot of fun to be. And Michael, I mean, just to have a wonderful conversation with people who've been following UFO Classified, who've been following Jack with his blog, The UFO Trail, and then following our work at Expanding Frontiers Research. You can go to Expanding Frontiers Research, shamelessplug.org, to check out everything that we've done, including seeing, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, what we did with Phenomicon, which received an award and received press coverage about the malfeasance going on in Vernal, Utah with the Phenomicon, which is coming up. I think is it this weekend when everyone will be there to, I don't know what, look at chemtrail or look at the crosses in the sky by chemtrails, and Lord knows what sort of things are happening. But anyway,
that's how that creeper hitchhiker gets loose.
Oh Lord, I'm telling you, that frickin' hitchhiker. And I was just thinking, I know that the fellow, oh my goodness, I'm totally blanking on his name, Zach Van Eck, who was the first person to report on Skinwalker Ranch. He was on the show. I think he's been on the show a couple of times, UFO Classified. But he just had a new film. He's releasing a new documentary about the hitchhiker. And so I'd love to get him on. I'm going to let him release the film first, and then I can see it and then get him on the show to talk about that. But yes, the good old hitchhiker.
Yeah. While we're giving shout outs, thank you very much to our friends over at Scandinavian UFO Information on the other side of the globe who have been reviewing my books and covering some of my work for years, but they recently took an interest in some of EFR's posts about records we're obtaining from the FBI on things that were going on in the mid 20th century. And so we added a link to their blog and organization in with that post. And it's always rewarding. It's gratifying to know folks are paying attention and following it. And to know that we're kind of exchanging information with people on the other side of the world that are trying to keep things in context too.
Yeah, that was really cool. I like that. So I like it. Yeah, Ted's, it's his excuse for everything, the hitchhiker. Seriously, we could go down that rabbit hole. But speaking of what, they were promoting, let's talk a little bit about some of the records that we've received thanks to your hard work here with Expanding Frontiers Research, and talk about some of the cast of characters who were in the UFO topic, who were very influential in the UFO topic decades ago, and some of the things that they were trying to raise red flags about. So Jack, go ahead. Let's get it on.
Yeah, when I was using Mark O'Connell's book like a research book, I like to get the Kindle edition because it's searchable. I was aware of the idea that he saw, rightfully so, he saw Hynek as very influential and leading a certain perspective and group of people interested in UFOs during the 1950s, the 1960s. Many people are aware that Hynek was eventually the inspiration for one of the side characters in Close Encounters of the Third Kind, and he did the table for the categories for Close Encounters, and he was influential in that. And so as I'm using Mark's book as a resource, And I'm thinking about how Mark saw part of that era as Hynek was guiding it. I couldn't help but think about how others perceive it as NICAP was guiding it and Kehoe was guiding it. And it's interesting, and occurred to me there was a lot. It's always hitting me at deeper and deeper levels how much was going on during that era, and how, I mentioned earlier the late 1940s were kind of the birth of the modern UFO phenomenon. During that era, they felt like it was new, and they felt like it was urgent, and they thought that it made sense to them that if beings are coming from Mars or Venus, they just started and they're just getting here, and this is something that we're going to know a lot about in a year or two. And they would have thought that by this point in time, we'd have probably had trade agreements and shuttles going back and forth to wherever these beings were from. And I'm always thinking about that as I find another person's work that does a deep dive or a biography on another aspect of it. One of those people, too, is Gabriel McKee, the biographer on Gray Barker, his book, The Saucerian. And one of the documents we got was a result of interacting with Gabriel McKee and doing some FOIA requests related to Gray Barker. And we've gotten documents from time to time from Tanner and Emily on Gray Barker and his circles. And we got a document from the National Archives indicating that Gray Barker wrote Hoover, the FBI director, and was concerned about a letter he received from Dr. Leon Davidson indicating that Leon Davidson had written Director Hoover at the FBI. And it was pretty clear from Gray Barker's letter that Davidson had warned the FBI director that there was subversive activity, right-wing extremist activity in the UFO community. And this was, I believe, circa 1958. If I could be wrong, though. I could be conflating some of this, but it was 1950s, 1960s. And so from that, we tried to get, let's have a look at this Leon Davidson letter. And it took some doing and some negotiating and consulting with an agency or two, but we came up with it as well. And yes, indeed, Dr. Davidson was informing Director Hoover of what he felt were specific subversive elements in the UFO community. Some of them were contactees. I recall he mentioned Daniel Fry specifically. Michael X was mentioned. And so these records lead to more FOIA requests that we take then the people that are referenced and the works that are referenced by Dr. Davidson and find the information that's necessary in order to submit a competent FBI FOIA request on them. And it just kind of keeps unfolding. Like I say, Erica, I could run with it for an hour and a half. So let me take a break and ask you have anything you'd like to add or comment there?
No, keep going.
Okay,
I'm not going to stop you now, man. You're on a roll.
During this same general time frame, one of the people Erica thought would be interesting to see what we could rattle up was Gabriel Green, who was a kind of a new age contactee type of guy, which reminds me another shout out we should give is Adam Gorightly, and he's on my list of people to get in touch with as well. In fact, how's this for a shout out? I just got this the other day. A is for Adamski, because a number of people referenced in these FBI files, Gorightly and his team of researchers have already delved into. So, don't reinvent the wheel, find out what they found out, submit some FOIA requests, and, take it from there. But yeah, there's quite a bit of material, and the request that we submitted on Gabriel Green just had a reference to him in an FBI memo. But a larger thing of interest in the FBI memo was that basically Ivan Sanderson, who shows up in lots of the NICAP archive files and lots of the crypto material and UFO material, he contacted the FBI on his own, took the initiative with the writer and editor, Hans Sanderson from overseas, to contact the FBI and let them know that the New York Saucer Information Bureau was the name of the organization, was conducting meetings that in Sanderson's opinion were subversive and Russian propaganda. And Sanderson was a former British intelligence officer. He was a press agent in New York, seems to be what he was doing in the country for World War II, and then he stayed afterwards. So a lot of research, you could read a lot between the lines there. A lot of research could be done there. And so FBI said, okay, here's some guy that wants to talk to us about Russian activity at some UFO group. They sent out a special agent. The agent interviewed Sanderson and Sanderson at Sanderson's home in New Jersey. He told them some people that were attending the meetings regularly, and he alleged that they bring people in under the guise of discussing UFOs and proceed to pretty much prop up the Communist Party line. And like how someone asked earlier, so what's the deal about Ramtha? I'd like to point out here too, one of the things that interests me in this is I see it very much as a window into more current events.
I would say so.
Yeah. I mean, this is, again, like what you were talking about at the beginning of the show, that if people are like, how is it that there's people that have been doing FOIA work and writing books and doing blogs and videos for years and years and years, and this is the first I hear that an influential UFO writer said to the FBI, I'm willing to be your guy. I mean, he told them, I will work with you. Let me know what you want me to do.
Yeah, I wonder if any of the people that went over to Russia for that combined conference a few years ago with China and Russia volunteered to be your guy.
Yeah, and so from this, we're conducting more requests and posting them. As I mentioned earlier, the drill is give them to the folks at Patreon first, discuss them with people at Patreon, figure it out, make an assessment, then make a public blog post at our main website. And rather than holding it all till we get everything, because I really don't know what everything is or where it's going, we're pretty much releasing it as we get it. And so we're conducting more requests on the people being named in the files. Who was Sanderson telling the FBI they should look at? Did they look at them? How much? These are the kinds of things that, thanks, Tanner. These are the kinds of things that we're looking into. And of course, the obvious thing was, well, did they ever get back with Sanderson? At least once they did, yeah. In 1963, so I think 5 years after he first went to them. Now, there may have been more, but we know that at least once in 1963, they went back to him, and we're not sure why yet. That's a really interesting part of the mystery. We know what they asked him, but we don't know why. So we've entered more FOIA requests about that, submitted more requests. We know that FBI sent a special agent to find Sanderson again and ask him about a man named Stark. I believe it's Robert, that I'm not familiar with. And we can presume that it had something to do with the New York Saucer Information Bureau, because in the memo we got that they're discussing Mr. Stark, they say that the agent documents, Sanderson said he hasn't been attending the saucer meetings, but he said these people may know more. And that included, interestingly, Isabel Davis, who's a NICAP staple. Mm-hmm. She also started another UFO organization with a guy named Lex. Again, I'll miss the pronunciation here, but Mebane, Mebane. He was the editor. He did the editorial for he was the editor and did the final cuts on their newsletters and things for the group they started. And so there's a lot going on here, and I can get kind of carried away into it. But yeah, we're trying to, clearly the man they're asking Sanderson about had something to do with the Saucer Bureau in New York. And our next request should probably more determine why.
It's so fascinating to me. And like you mentioned, it is mirroring current events. And I mean, history clearly repeats itself, and clearly people don't learn from history. It's a quite shocking state of human affairs. But, I will say that it's fascinating to me. I just want to go back to the Russian piece, because I know for me personally, I've been contacted by foreign people to appear on news channels on behalf of I don't know what, but and so you do see, I mean, there is a vested interest in foreign adversaries or people in here that want to create or steer a narrative. And I just wanted to throw that out there. But, it was the same then, it's the same now. And I don't know why, and I want to talk to you a little bit and go off on this topic, Jack. Why do you think a lot of the people in the UFO hierarchy don't seem to take the situation with the intelligence community seriously? And if they pretend like they take it seriously, why are they pretending like it's they're misrepresenting the way things are actually happening?
I think it goes back, Erica, to what I was paraphrasing from James Carrion earlier. I think we've learned from him that it only takes a couple of people to create a whole wave of influence. And then as you get the people that have been influenced thinking that it's their original thinking and sharing it further, then they're doing the work for them. I think is one thing that's happening. I also think they're so wearing those blinders. Again, I'll go back to the email from the man that didn't, like, he could no longer envision how I might receive a video of something going on at Dugway Proving Ground. Like, that was proof of aliens to him. It like, there was just going to be no way I could even broach the subject of, but it's a military facility,
Right.
And when people have those blinders, when Area 51 means alien lore to them, it's really hard to work around that. It's really hard. I mean, they can't have beginner's mind. They can't, because they've already been influenced and indoctrinated. So I think that happens a lot. And on the topic of how looking into the past gives us insight into the present and future, you bring up the Russian angle. Well, the memo on subject is Mr. Stark, that they went and talked to Sanderson about the New York Saucer Information Bureau to see if he recognized Mr. Stark and what Sanderson could tell the Bureau about Mr. Stark. The other thing referenced in that memo is that the special agent documented that Stark had worked at a specific company in 1957. And now remember, this is a 1963 memo. So was it that's the last? Did we lose the trail then? Or are we just interested in this 1957 employment? Is a reasonable question. And I was able to do some searching on, why would they have been interested in this employer? And it was a company that was started by a Russian immigrant. And then this man sold several companies in 1957 and apparently retired rather well off. Does that play into the FBI interest or not? I don't know, but I thought I'd mention it in the context of your interest. And Russia always seems about one move away.
Yeah, it is interesting. And I want to just, go back because I know that somebody in chat had mentioned, I think it was Amy, had mentioned, if you look at RT and you look at some of the UFO characters that have shown up, for quite some time on, RT, I think that's very fascinating, including, I don't know. I would just maybe don't, but, I think go check it out sometime and then look at people, question people and their motivations and what information they're putting out and why in the world you'd make the decision to cross that bridge is completely beyond me, but I guess everybody has their reasons.
To make it really complicated too, everybody needed that, right? More complications. When I was smiling about Colonel Alexander earlier, I was also thinking about, he was a professional at whatever it was he was doing. He was given, the best training that the United States has to give. And he's right about a lot of things he says make sense. You can verify them, and that will lend credibility to the things that seem to be just jumping the shark. And you don't know why he says them. In fact, one time when I had the opportunity to ask him about General Stubblebine, I thought this was as straightforward and accurate a response as someone could give. He told me he was my boss, and I don't know why he said the things he said. And I thought, that's fair enough. He wasn't read into why Stubblebine's on YouTube acting like a blithering idiot, basically. And where I'm headed with this is with RT, Russia Today. I was a big fan of Abby Martin that was on RT. I felt like a lot of her stuff was on point. And that doesn't mean it was wrong. It could mean it was on point and serves the Russian agenda to help create subversion and social unrest. And I'm reminded of in the work we've done, the FOIA work we've done on Joseph Bryan's crew. Joseph Bryan ended up being on a staple, longtime member of the NICAP board of directors. And he was a psychological warfare expert that worked in the Office of Policy Coordination, which was a covert arm of the CIA. And one of the people that worked for him, Alsop was his name, Carlton Alsop, I think is the name. We got FBI records that demonstrate how Alsop was at one point the Wizard of Oz lady. What's her name?
Sorry, I'm so bad. I was reading Michael's chat.
That's okay.
I'm sorry. Michael, you're distracting me.
Liza Minnelli's daughter. That's a funny way to frame it. Judy Garland. Thank you. Yeah.
Judy Garland's daughter.
Yeah. Alsop was Judy Garland's manager for a while. And he was an extremely influential figure in Hollywood. And what this has to do with RT and all of that, where I'm headed with this is our FOIA requests indicate that one of the things that Alsop was tasked with doing was monitoring what was perceived to be Soviet activity in Hollywood. That how were things framed in movies? Were they making a big deal out of civil rights in the 1960s? Were white people and the white-run government being framed poorly? And Alsop was supposed to be collecting this information behind the scenes, in the loop, reporting on it, and then carrying out the FBI's wishes of how they'd prefer things be framed in movies. And so, see, that's an example of how Russia may have had an interest in stoking the civil rights movement and pointing out the social injustice that would be correct. Yet the motives of why they would be interested in it are subversive. And that's I'm kind of drawing a line there to, I appreciated Abby Martin's work, and she was on the board of Project Censored in California and all of these, what I saw as good liberal value projects, and she was on RT. So yeah, I think the professionals, they mixed in true activism, good work with harmful disinformation. And typically, as citizens with a computer and a television, we're nearly defenseless to sort that out. Really, to my knowledge, the only way is to verify what we base our opinions on, where we send our moral support, where we send our financial support. And that is the purpose of Expanding Frontiers research, is to show the research process, facilitate the research process with interested parties, show how we do it. And that's our purpose for any number of topics of public interest.
Yeah, absolutely. I want to just go back to talk a little bit about some of the comments in chat. Again, you guys have great comments. I really appreciate having such an active chat and back and forth. And I'm sorry that Mario isn't here. I miss Mario, but hopefully now that we're doing the shows again, we'll be seeing Mario in chat, who was a moderator. But when it was mentioned, social unrest is rooted in social conditions, though. And that's a great point, but it's all of the above. Unrest in social settings causes is a great kind of a rabbit hole for people to get into people's heads. Like Amy's also mentioning that some of the people that are actively sought to give information to foreign adversaries are people that have a lot of bones to pick with losing their government jobs. That's something that we've been told and warned about for months now, with all the layoffs, all the federal layoffs, that these people are perhaps in a very vulnerable position to be used or kind of recruited by foreign adversaries, for sure. So, and yeah, be more worried about what the American government is up to. Is you're a hot tip there. I think we are. I know I am. I don't know about you, Jack.
Yeah, and we're talking about, evolving eras, 1980s, 90s, 2000s. Yeah, like like back in the 60s, when the Bureau wanted to keep a thumb on how racial inequality was framed in Hollywood. Absolutely. If Russia's pointing out, oh my God, look how people are being treated in this country, they're not wrong, but they have political interests in pointing it out. They're obviously not working on human rights violations in Russia while they're focusing on the human rights violations in America. And they're correct about that. It's just an example of how the information warfare works, and like what Hollywood's purpose was to the CIA and the FBI, and still is. Most any movie that you see that involves Air Force equipment, planes, these fighter pilot movies, there are offices in the CIA and the armed forces to act as consultants to movies, to provide them with equipment, to provide them with consultations on different parts of their movies. And those come at a price. The CIA and the agencies expect consideration in steering the plot lines and how certain things are framed and how heroes are developed and things like that. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I'm sorry, Jack. It is fun for me to see all the comments in chat and everything. So I apologize for
That's okay.
talking to you and then looking at chat and things. And I also want to just say, you guys, I'm sorry that I'm not more active in chat. As you can see very clearly, I just demonstrated it's hard to be active in chat and type and then and talk to Jack and things. So.
I don't even try to keep up. It's also a technological issue. You need multiple screens open. Some people use literally multiple screens, like multiple monitors, in order to try to do it. It can become a thing. Yeah. But we're glad you guys are here. I want to echo Erica's appreciation that you're active and providing feedback and questions. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that we have just 15 minutes left. The time is just, it always goes by so quickly. I want to again kind of go back and make sure, first of all, you click like and subscribe to UFO Classified. I will be back after a bit of a respite, and my focus on expanding frontiers research with Jack. And I also want to say, please visit expandingfrontiersresearch.org to check out the 3 years worth of work that we have done. I'm incredibly proud of that. And just because I might appear to be, offline, in this UFO classified sense, that doesn't mean I have stopped looking into everything involved with this community, with the people involved, with the claims that are being made. I am very much active, and there isn't a day that goes by that I'm not active. And so just in case people were relieved that I'd gone somewhere, some of you, guess again, Mama's back. Mama never left. You just weren't paying attention. Too bad for you.
Yeah, over at expandingfrontiersresearch.org, we just celebrated 3 full years of operations. We're a public charity under IRS tax exemption, Utah-based public charity. And go to expandingfrontiersresearch.org, and we have conducted well over 300 FOIA requests and appeals on behalf of public interest and researchers that we're helping with their work. There have been over 100 blog posts that you can read through about what we have accomplished and found through those requests. There are dozens of videos that you can check out, interviews Erica has been conducting, and informational videos over on our Patreon channel, which is linked through the website. You can join for free, and there is lots of free material as a public service. There are collections on FOIA instruction about how to conduct requests, how to do requests, videos and posts in that collection. There's a collection of interviews on what was the name of it? It just ran out of my head. See, if we were taping, this is where I jump in and say, edit that part. Learning how to learn.
Yeah, that is great.
There's a learning how to learn collection, and it's all available as a free public service at our Patreon page. Go ahead.
Sorry. Well, and I'm cutting you off again. I'm sorry, but I want to ask you, while this is on my mind and while we've got maybe 15 minutes left of the show, I want to ask you, and definitely go check out what we've done. I mean, the videos, the interviews, like Jack was mentioning, the Learning to Learn series that Jack did is excellent. And it really provides a good basis for people to take the bull by the horns and think critically, and also, learn how to do records requests and all of these things. And I want to talk to you, Jack, pivotal time in history on so many levels. But now that we see the complete dismantling of our government here in the United States, the FOIA process is going to be what is going to happen? What are you seeing happen now with that? And what are your fears and concerns about our access, the public's access to information?
There's reason for concern. There's always concern when records are being taken offline. We don't know if they're being preserved or if they're being destroyed. And they are being taken offline. Reading rooms of public agencies are being removed. Email addresses are being made inoperative to various agencies. Some of the spokespersons for the current administration is outright, telling reports in media that we're reading that certain topics, the material will be destroyed. All of the research that's been defunded, all of that is a concern about the preservation of records. And in the Learning How to Learn series, that is one of the things we address specifically. Guest Aaron Gullius, a historian, talked about the importance of records preservation. Now, all of that said, there's reason for concern. We should always worry about that. Transparency is not the ally of totalitarian efforts. But that said, there are some 3,000 counties in the United States. I don't know how many different federal agencies. And within each of those counties, even, there are multiple towns, all with multiple offices of everything from disease control to public health clinics to county and city government. I mean, that's how we broke the Phenomicon story, was dealing with the tourism office of a county government. So there are literally tens of thousands of different offices that can have public records requests submitted to them. So I would encourage people to continue their means of research, to get in communities, be it on social media, be it with us, wherever you do it, with like-minded people. Find out different techniques different people are using, find out different offices that are working. Like clearly some of the sheriff's agencies have been really open and forthright with us. I currently have a request in with a federal agency that has a reputation of being difficult to deal with, that I can say, at least on the surface, it's handling itself professionally and correctly. Sometimes we may get a little bit different experience when we're doing some work with an agency ourselves than things we're hearing or reading about. But yes, there is definitely reason for concern.
I would say.
I've interacted with a FOIA liaison office with one agency that about 3 weeks ago had assured me they'd get back with me within a couple of weeks. And I would presume that we're not going to be working out any dispute resolution services with them. Maybe an email will turn up eventually, but I should probably just go ahead and file an appeal. I was trying to avoid that part of the process, but you just follow it through to completion and do what you do. And so, there's a lot of reason for concern. We're still getting a lot of positive, transparent responses from FBI, from National Archives. They seem to still be coordinating well when we act as the liaison between the two. So
and I think right now, if you guys have any suggestions for us as far as doing records requests, we are game. I mean, Jack and I talk about this all the time. I mean, there will be a time when we are not going to have access. I can fully envision that's coming really quickly. And so we need, if you have any ideas, suggestions, let's get it going on, guys. Time is of the essence right at the moment. So that's all that I have to say on that topic. And I also, as we close the show out, this has been really fun again to do UFO Classified. It's been a hot minute because we've been working at Expanding Frontiers, EFR, and I've loved every minute of my work with Jack. I learned so much from him, and we've really uncovered a lot, in my opinion, that's important. And as you know, we've mentioned, we have an archive here that is, you know, over 100,000 pages of documents, correspondence, photographs, videos. You know, I mean, the James McDonald files are incredible. The interviews with Betsy McDonald, and some of these things that need to be archived. I've got over 200 cassettes that need to be archived, you know, and I mean, it is intense. And I will just say, I'm going to go out there on a line. We need help. We need public support. We need people to become Patreons or make a one-time donation, because we can't do this by ourselves. We absolutely cannot. And we appreciate the people that do support us. That means a lot. We need more equipment, and we need to make sure that this information is preserved, including everything that Jack is doing with the FOIA and records requests. I mean, this needs to be put forward, and that's one thing I'm really proud of with Expanding Frontiers. We are putting things forward. It is publicly available, and we'll continue to do that. I really think that Expanding Frontiers is important for a number of reasons, and one of the biggest is because we're coming to you, we're putting out information as we have it. It is not good, bad. It is not swayed towards one side. This is the information. And I just want to say in show closing, as I mentioned from the beginning, that I think right now, when you're looking at the UFO community, it's important to remember that there are people in the UFO community who have access to a lot of information, who have a vested interest in not promoting facts. They have a vested interest in promoting lore. And so I would just say to you, you know, make sure you understand that. And when somebody is promoting specific things, look at their agenda. What is their agenda? You know, there's some shady stuff going on right now. There has been for a long, long time, but I mean, literally, there's some shady stuff going on. But we can get into that another day. I'm just saying. And
Pretty
so
much from the jump. I mean, that's what the U.S. and that's why it's important to look at the history and to read the records and look for stuff in them other than flying saucers, because then it becomes apparent that from the jump, there were people with ulterior motives and there were intelligence agencies trying to figure out what they were and occasionally running a game themselves.
Yeah, seriously. And I want to just say, Lord Ludacris, it's so nice to see you. It's been a hot minute. Yeah, I think Ludacris is watching some football. I don't know, maybe. But he just asked if we consider digitizing the tapes, and yes, I was actually doing that. But we need better equipment. It is much cheaper to get the equipment and to have that here than to send it off to be digitized. So again, yes, I'm shamefully plugging Expanding Frontiers Research and asking for donations from the public. And also, please, if you can't donate, please like and share. Not only UFO Classified, because you know I'm back here doing my shows, but please go to Expanding Frontiers Research, join.org, join the email list, like and share our channel on YouTube, and help us spread the word. This is, as I mentioned, we're a community, and we rely, you know, on each other for support and for help. I'm very grateful to all of you. I love it. I mean, honestly, and I love you guys. I mean, I know that sounds totally sappy, but I'm being very sincere. That I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have gone through everything I've gone through, and you know, if you follow me, what all that nonsense was. But I wouldn't have gone through this, and you know, and persevered had it not been for all of you out there and my work with Jack. So thank you to all of you guys. I really, really love it, and I'm so happy to be back on UFO Classified. Cha cha cha. I did not break out into song, even though I was very tempted. I could break out into Copacabana, but I'd be dating myself there. And Mama likes to pretend she's much younger than she is. Just a passing thought for the show close. Anyway, guys, Ken, nice to see you guys. And you guys take care. We will be back, and make sure you just check for the live updates. Thank you for your comments. Jack, thank you for your partnership. I love it. And I hope all of you guys have a good weekend. And again, as Jack and I have stressed throughout the show, just make sure that we're mindful of the information that we're consuming. Now's a really interesting time. And I think the UFO world has taught me a lot about motivations, about disinformation campaigns, about delusional thinking and cults and all of that. So anyway, thanks you guys. And thanks, Michael. Nice to see you. And I know it's late there, but thank you very much, Jack. Have a wonderful weekend. I'm sure I'll be talking. Thanks, you guys. And we will catch you next time on UFO Classified and Expanding Frontiers Research. Stay safe. Bye, guys.